because
Yes.
Ice Cube sang about it many decades ago. It's a great day because it's the anniversary of something that great that really happened that pretty much sent ripples through the whole world, really. Um, Happy birthday, happy anniversary to both of you when it comes to this Sister Riot Girl. Sorry, no Riot Girl, Sister Girl Riot movement. And seriously, you guys have influenced like a lot of people. It was so cool. The first time I saw you guys was in Afropunk, but I had no idea until years later you guys were before that and you spawned that. And every other movement like punk black and all the other different scenes that have happened, it was because of that movement.
Mm.
Man, how do you guys feel right now?
Uh,
Go ahead.
I'll be real with you. Like, sometimes it's shocking that people outside of New York even know about it. Like, when Punk Black did their first New York show, and this young woman came up with a screenshot of our flyer in her phone,
Oh,
I almost felt
wow.
like I was being punked. Like, who are you? How do you know this? Were you even born in 1998? Like, so it's kind of incredible that people in other cities, states, and countries have found out about us while we're still here. I think it's pretty amazing. Not for nothing.
Man,
Like, even if that's it, like, oh, cool, some young black girls know about us and now they're starting bands. And they can ask us questions because we're real people, you know?
that's so cool. Maya, what are you feeling right now?
About that,
Yeah.
I think it's great. Like since I haven't been in New York and I'm kind of a hermit now. I don't go out as much. I don't interact with that as much, but I did go out on one of my rare occasions that I went out of the house. I went to see this band Bond Breaker, and it was a punk black whatchamacallit, South by Southwest show, and it was all black women fronted rock bands, and there were a couple people there who knew who I was, which was weird because again, like, I don't go out and I haven't been musically active in a long time. So yeah, it was cool, and like Honeychild said, is also strange.
It's a beautiful thing. I mean, seriously,
Mhm.
like, if you guys don't mind, I want to actually read your flyer. I wrote everything down, if that's cool. And then I have some questions after that. I might sound kind of weird, but I'm going to do this.
Okay.
It's almost like you guys are this Voltron, so it's like Valentine's Day Riot featuring Sister Girls at Brownies Avenue A between 11th and 10th Street. Doors open at 8. Honeychild at 9 p.m. Semi Stone at 10 p.m. Maya at 11. Tamara at 12. The damage is $8. For more
$8.
info, 212-425-392. Now I have to ask you this. What was going on in your minds before the gig, during the gig, and after the gig? I had to ask
Now,
that.
1 second.
Yeah. Oh, dang, Maya, I wanted you to go first. I feel like we're going to say something very similar, but I would like to hear Maya's view first.
Most
To hear
definitely.
her take on this. But while Maya has stepped away, we got to give a shout out to the other two sister girls, to Markali and Simi, and the honorary sister girls, Shoshana and Kimya Dawson. So,
Oh, I didn't know. I was gonna ask you. There was another gal that I didn't know. Like, I was gonna ask you about that. Was that one of them? I've heard of Camilla, but I didn't know who that was in the flyer with you guys. And I have it on one of the things that I did on my TikTok about you guys. I didn't know who that was. I was gonna ask about that.
yeah,
I feel dumb.
that's Shoshana, aka Shosh, my homegirl, originally from Staten Island, but we actually met in Berkeley. So I've known her the longest out of all the sister girls. But
Wow,
Maya,
heavy.
I wanted to hear your take on the question first, just because I'm curious to know if we're going to say the same thing.
I'm sorry, I got distracted because the bedroom door was closed apparently, and one of my cats was screaming like she was on fire. So,
Well, man, the question was, it's kind of a three-way question. Me and my multiple like arm questions. What was going through your mind on that day of the gig, before the gig, during the gig, and after the gig? I'm just curious if you could recall any of that.
I remember, I mean, kind of vaguely, I have like spotty memories of a lot of things for a few reasons. Like there's long COVID and just that it was a long time ago, and a lot of other things that happened between then and now. But I remember that show, that first time that Honeychild, myself, Tamar Kali, and Simi did a show together, I remember having this kind of, not tension or nervousness, but it was definitely felt like a new thing, like something was going to happen, and I wasn't sure what that was. It was something that I hadn't been a part of before, but it's kind of like, the way that it feels before a storm or before something, like there wasn't really words for it, but there was definitely this sense of like this is going to be something different. And for me, just because I had always been or felt like an outsider, whether it was because I felt like an outsider around other Black people, or I felt like an outsider because I was the only Black band around a bunch of other white people, I just had this feeling of like, not that I didn't know if I would be accepted. I just didn't know. Like it was just kind of the great unknown kind of thing. And I remember at the time, well, the whole time, my closing song was always not a cover, but a reclaiming of the Patti Smith song. And one of the guys that was playing in my band at the time hated that I did that song, hated it, and was putting in my head that everybody else was going to hate it. He's like, you shouldn't do that song. It's not right. It's no good. Because it's the Patti Smith song that a lot of Black people have a problem with. And I was like, I'm not Patti Smith, and that's kind of the reason that I'm taking it back. The song Rock and Roll Nigger, by the way, if that's not obvious. And so just things like that, just things that, like I hadn't had a primarily Black crowd up to that point, and here's this guy who, and this was also part of, being a female musician. There was always a man that was going to tell you that you were doing something wrong, and so it was kind of a combination of that with this particular guitarist, where he was telling me that it was wrong, that it wasn't going to work, and that people were going to hate it. And so I had that in my head going in, just about myself in general. You know who I'm talking about, honey.
I'm not going to name no names, but yes.
And so, and my whole thing was like, I've been there. I've been not liked or not, told that what I'm doing isn't appropriate. So that's nothing new. But this was kind of the first time that I did care. My whole attitude was like, I don't care what people think of me. But that night I cared. It was kind of like, and that was strange. But I was still going to do what I was going to do. And then I'm never really aware of what I'm thinking about during a show, but then after, I remember seeing, kind of the other side of that feeling, like something is about to happen. I saw that on everybody else's face. I saw like, these women, Black women and girls that were coming up to me with like tears in their eyes and excitement on their face, and like, where have you guys been, and like everybody having this very grateful energy, and kind of like when I first moved to New York, it was one of those moments of like, oh wow, I found a place. It was a click, like here's a place where I belong. And there's been very few of those throughout my life. So that was a feeling that I had, and it was a feeling that I was aware that lots of other people were able to have that night too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it
Man,
definitely it felt like for me because I had just met my Simi's actually the first sister girl I met in New York. I met Simi before even Tamar. And then some of my friends from the electronic scene were also there who didn't even know that I played guitar or never knew that side of me. And one of those friends was in Simi's band. So it was like a mashing of all the worlds. And also, like, it was the first band I ever had because until then I'd been solo. And it was the first time I'd played rock music in front of Black people, which
mm,
sounds so crazy. But again, here we are living in this isolated situation, even in New York. Like, I hadn't played CBGBs yet. I'd been in the open mic scene world because I was solo and I didn't have a band and I was just trying to like keep my chops up and meet people. So it was a really new feeling. And like Maya said, like I actually really cared because I respected everybody in the room so much. And I wanted to be taken seriously, like as the band leader, teaching these guys this music, even though I wasn't playing that first show. I didn't play guitar. I don't think I played for a while because I was so just focused on getting it together. Um, Also, it was a polar opposite of my electronic world where everything was dark and you could hide behind gear and no one really looked at you because it was more of like chill out. This was like, oh no, you're on stage and you're in front. So it was a lot of adrenaline and also just the excitement of knowing that we did it. Like we combined our forces and booked this show on our own terms, and here it is.
beautiful. That is so cool. I have to ask a few. Well, I got a bunch of questions, of course. You guys, this is so cool, man. I'm trying not to. I'm like totally excited, man. Just this is amazing. And shouts to all of you cats that came. I see you all. I see Punk Demic. I see Sam, Culture Rock Griot. I see Rosenda.
Samantha.
Yeah.
I see, man, there's a lot of cats up in here, man. They came out to see you cats, man. It's so rad, man. I see all of you guys, man. There's a lot of names out there. I really appreciate you guys for coming out. Um, the second question I was going to ask is, it's kind of me and my two-part questions. I've read that, the whole Riot Grrrl thing, there's an article that I remember reading that was written about you guys and the whole Riot Grrrl thing being more listed in Newsweek as something defined as for suburban middle class white girls, and then I think Lyanna Dawes kind of responded to that with something that she said to the degree of like not having a place in that, and it didn't relate to anyone that was like her, or like us, well, not me because I'm a guy, but like as far as that whole scene. I mean, yeah, you had what's the woman, the drummer of Fire? Oh my gosh, I forgot the name of that band. I guess they're kind of considered a part of that. But eventually, like a lot of it was kind of more geared towards that demographic. Now, I've read that, I have to ask this, was Sister Grrrl a response to Riot Grrrl, or was it just something that you guys just thought of independent of that?
Uh,
Sorry for my
I
long.
think
no, it's because I don't want to misquote anyone. I don't know if you feel this way, Maya, like, because I know like Tamara came up with the name. Um, it was definitely a reaction, but also not trying to be like them, just not seeing ourselves in that.
Yeah.
And I know like different people were telling me like, oh, you'd really like Riot Grrrl, it's really cool. But I just felt like, one, I'm out of college, so I felt like, okay, that's young people. Not to say I felt old, but I was like, oh, that's college girls. And then yeah, where are the women of color? Like I don't see how I would fit into that scene or that world. And I also don't see it here because again, I'm in New York City. Meanwhile, I did play one show that was considered a Riot Grrrl show, not even knowing it. Like looking at the flyer years later, I was like, oh, that was a Riot Grrrl thing. Like two of the bands were real Riot Grrrl bands, but I was never in the scene. So I think I know more about that scene now in retrospect than I knew about it when it was going on. Like when it was really going on, I heard of some bands, but I was just in something else. And we weren't imitating it because we weren't in it. I do know bands behind us who grew up really loving all the Riot Grrrl music, and it definitely influenced them. That wasn't us.
Yeah,
It seemed independent of it, to be honest, in my opinion, with just some things that I've, some bands and just what I know about it. To be honest, what you guys seem more independent of that. That's why I had to ask that question. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like.
No, I mean,
yeah,
we weren't all alike, like we were all different.
Yeah. I think for me, because I wasn't really, I was such a, at the time anyway, and probably still, I was such a 3-chord rock and roll purist that there were, a couple of the bands that I knew about. Like I knew about, Babes in Toilet, I knew of Bikini Kill, but I have always had this thing where there's like 3 bands at a time that I will listen to and nothing really outside of that. And so I didn't know much about what they were doing. Again, it was, pre-internet, like everything isn't in your face all the time. So unless those are your friends and that's the record store you're hanging out at and those are the clubs you're going to, it's not, like Honeychild said, you're not part of that scene. So I didn't know much about it. And, when Tamar Kali came up with the name, I remember kind of feeling like, it sounds like, because it was independent of all of that. Like we all had our own thing going. And like, Honeychild just said, we were all completely different from each other, all doing our own thing. And so it couldn't have been a response to the Riot Grrrl movement or scene or whatever. I mean, the name maybe, but, we were all doing our thing. And the idea for us to start doing shows together was just kind of a natural progression of that. So it was independent of that, which is why I originally didn't love the idea of the name, because it sounded like a response to or connection to Riot Grrrl.
It's interesting that I also read Tamar didn't want to say that you guys were playing shows or deem your performances as shows, but as riots. That's another reason that I kind of just thought it was independent of that too. I'm just curious, though, like what made her even think that? It's interesting because just my take on thinking of it is almost like, okay, people are always talking about shows. We're like here to entertain you. No, this is the real thing. This is an uprising. That's just my opinion. What do you guys think about that?
I can't speak for Tamara, but I can say that we were all pretty fed up with the patriarchy when we decided to combine our forces. Like being the leader of a band of dudes, and no diss to all the dudes that we played with, because some of them are still our really good friends, but it's kind of hard to be heard sometimes. Or going to a venue and saying, I want to book my band, but then they look at the band and they don't understand it. And when we put all of our energies together, it was powerful. And we were able to move in a different way. And, we didn't have the language to say, oh, this is a safe space, but it was. It was a safe space for us and our friends to be our freaky selves behind those doors as soon as the music started and do whatever we wanted. And that is a riot, because we were reacting against everything that like managers and club owners and labels were telling us, oh, you have to be this. So not knowing, and I say this again because a lot of the DIY ethics that we had, sure, they were also happening in Riot Grrrl, but we weren't studying Riot Grrrl, so we weren't trying to follow what they did, but we happened to be doing a lot of the same things. Maya and I are both visual artists. We were making posters. I was making zines since college. Tamara, we were all making our own shit and like doing shows our way and getting into these feminist spaces like Meow Mix. But it wasn't because we were trying to be like something else. This is just how we rolled. So yeah, when we put together the riots, it was an event. It wasn't just, oh, here's a rock show with 4 girl bands. Like, you knew each thing was going to be powerful and heavy and like nothing else. Even if you came to see us on our own at other shows, it wasn't the same as going to a Riot.
Yeah, the Riot seems to get more attention than just, people. I mean, even when you talk about like just being black in general, oh, put on a show, almost like that's where they get the whole minstrelly thing coming. No, this is not a show. This is something that's going to leave you with an impression to make you think. So that's the vibe that I got when I was looking into how you guys, named yourself and what you called your shows. And in talking to you guys on separate interviews, I can totally see that. And that's really cool, man. And I feel like that consciousness should always be there, like just in my opinion, when it comes to like just a performance, but that's just me. Man, any opinions? There's something else that I was going to ask, but anything else that y'all want to say about that?
Yeah, no,
I'm all giddy.
that was definitely part of it, that there was something deliberate about the events. Like, it was also a rock show. It was also, a badass night at CBGB's. Like, you didn't have to be a feminist black woman to walk in and have a good time. But it was definitely as the kids say, it was a vibe. Like, yeah, because it was people who got together and acknowledged, we're alone out here, so let's join forces, kind of thing. That always gives life to something. I don't know. And I think, again, like in retrospect, there's things that we can see or that other people can interpret about it, like things that you can see now, having talked to people individually and looking back on us and reading like things that we weren't necessarily aware of at the time, that people can see now and like put together with everything that came after us.
Here's another question for you, Maya, on that too. I read that you were an all-girl band before that. So what was the difference between that versus like what you guys had, with you, Honeychild, Simi, and Tamar had? I'm just curious if you don't mind.
There's a lot different. So I was in 2 different all-girl bands, actually. One in Ohio in '92, and then one that was in New York. And first of all, those bands were all white. And so that was its own thing. Like, it's this very, like, we're presenting ourselves, we're all women, that has an effect on people. And, there's something that we'll leave you with that will be new. But they were white bands. They weren't my bands. It was the times that I had joined someone else's band. So that was also different for me. And this was my own words, my own power, in a lot of ways. And I think, like, I don't know what, like, being in an all-woman band has its own kind of energy, but again, like, it was a totally different thing in a lot of ways. This was different because, and I think a lot of people have this misconception about us, like when they see the pictures of us together, a lot of people think like, oh, what a cool band that was, when they see the Sista Girls. And the fact that it was a collective and not a band is so much more powerful, because it's like, no, it's not a group of, it's not the Pointer Sisters, it's not like, which is an awesome thing, but it's like a bunch of mothers having their own babies, and so, I think and have seen in retrospect that because we're all so different creatively, because like the difference between me and Honeychild is as vast as the difference between Simi and Tamar and me and Tamar and Honeychild and Simi. Like, we were all so completely different musically and personality wise, that we all had individually, without the Sister Girl Riots, we all had our own influence that we left and impact that we left as well. So to bring all of that together is going to be a lot broader and a lot different for people than seeing one group of like 4 women that are all singing the same song together. You know, if that makes any sense.
That's yeah, man. That's so cool. Like, man, it's amazing just to even to have that kind of synergy. And with that, I have to ask, like, I know you guys played at Webster Hall and CBGB's. Was Webster Hall the Ritz? I read that. I always heard about
Was
the
it?
Ritz, but I
Yeah,
didn't know.
it was the Ritz in the 80s.
Oh,
Wow.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
okay. Moxie, my cat's screaming. Sorry.
So how many of these riots went on? Like, and um, how long basically, like, were you guys doing those events as Sister Girls? If
Oh,
you don't
God.
mind me asking.
It was between 98 and well, the last one was 2005, right? Or
Yeah.
2005, yeah.
Yep.
Man, do you know how many gigs you
Don!
guys? Oh, my bad. What was that?
No, I'm just acknowledging that there's a incredible artist, Donna Coro, who, by the way, Honeychild, I meant to tell you, has a show in New York right
Oh,
now,
Oh,
or has some of her pieces in
hit me
New
up.
York.
Hit me up.
Anyway, yeah.
that's so
She's
cool.
Donna's a
to
visual
that.
artist, but she had an exhibit called Punk Noir, and you just check her out. You got to check her out.
Okay.
I gotta check her out. I dig the sound of that.
Yes.
The homegirl
She's
Whirler Girl
incredible.
is here. What's up, Jenny? I see you. Punkdemic, Miss Amazon is here. Check her out. You guys got to do an interview with her too, man. She's awesome.
Right.
If you don't know anything about Punkdemic, she does a lot of stuff with clothing, but she also does like community stuff too.
Cool.
And she interviews like me as well, you know, like really cool, like, yeah, man. We're all in the same circle. But yeah, I have to check that out. Do you guys know how many gigs y'all played, or?
Oh, that was the question. Yeah.
Oh,
Honeychild probably has better record of that.
well, I thought I did, but shout out to Peppermint Reagan, by the way, who is
Oh,
doing
Yes.
a comic on the Sister Girls. I believe between all of our artifacts, we did 7 official riots. In addition, we also had Mayapalooza. And then some other shows where we would each group together in 2s and 3s during that span.
Man, that's so cool. Yeah, Peppermint Reagan. I'm so glad. I like all the stuff that she's doing, you know, like just, you know, really putting that out there in the art and everything, you know. That's so cool. Man.
Don, by the way, you would love her. You'd love Reagan Buchanan if you don't already know her. That's somebody I need to hook you up with.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You all
Most definitely.
know each other.
So here's another question. Was there ever a compilation that you guys recorded as like a Sister Girl compilation? And if not, would you actually do that in the future?
We kept talking about it.
Yeah.
It kept almost happening.
Yeah, we were talking about it. There's no official compilation, but I did a radio show last year where I put together a bunch of our songs. I'll send you the link.
Heck yeah.
It was on the DJ Small Change show, so shout out to Small Change. Yeah, because we've also been loosely talking about maybe doing another Riot. No date set, but the compilation idea could come up during those meetings.
Yeah, I was hoping that. Are we allowed to say what Reagan is doing?
Oh, I just did already.
Yeah, no, dude. My thing is,
let
let me tell you how I get down. You guys should know this. I want to promote anything that like we're doing, whether it be your music or like definitely. And I know Reagan's busy. I've been wanting to interview her, but she's booked like mad, you know. And no, please tell us because it's.
No,
I
was
she's
asking.
Been busy.
Yeah, I was asking Honeychild if we were allowed to talk about it yet, but yes. No, both ways.
Reagan, she made a zine / comic called Strange Glances, and I think we're all mentioned in that. She also made The Secret History of Black Punk, volumes 1, 2, and maybe there's a third one. And then from there, she and Flora put together an actual music festival based on that zine. And now she's working on a new zine that will feature the Sister Girls.
Right on.
It's not a zine. It's really like a full-on comic. So
yeah,
that's rad.
That's
so cool.
No joke.
So that's why. So with that, I was hoping that by now we had planned on what was it supposed to be, last year? We were supposed to do a reunion show, and then, or the year before, and then, yeah, I know that she was hoping that maybe we could do something with the release of the comic book, but you know, soon, guys, soon. Mama getting tired.
So cool, man.
These amps are heavy. Amps are heavy.
Man. One of the things that was interesting too, and I remember, I think it was you, Honey Child, that told me that Greg Tate, you know, BRC, Greg Tate, rest in peace, was the first to write about you guys.
Yeah.
In the article. You guys want to expound off of that, and how was your reaction to that as well?
Maya, do you want to go first?
Oh, I mean, I was, that was totally honored. I was so tickled. That was like my whole press kit was just the quote, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, to have Greg Tate write about you at all, and it was in, that was the one that was in Vibe,
Yeah.
right? It was
with,
in a Vibe
cover, holding a Fender.
Yes,
it was like a double meaning.
Yeah.
Sure.
And yeah, it was just like a little kind of paragraph about each of us, or a blurb about each of us, but the way that Greg wrote everything, like each word was so brilliantly chosen that if he only said 3 words about you, like you would get those words tattooed, you know. It was such an important affirmation, I guess, or validation to just be, and you know, he was part of our little world, and so like in one way it was like, oh cool, Greg did a thing, and then, you know, still decades later, that's such an important thing. Like this, you know, didn't he get like a posthumous Pulitzer, I think?
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah, so like the Pulitzer Prize winning writer saying anything about you is really cool. But yeah, that was my first. I think everybody else had some press at that time. That was my first real press. No?
That was my first real press about my music. I'd had press about things I'd done with other people where they kind of mentioned me, like, oh, the street singer. But this is the first time they're like,
the street singer,
Cal Coleman, playing guitar, Black woman. I was like, oh wait, what? So for me, the timing was particularly exciting because I also was going to Europe for the first time in my life to play music with that article in my hand, with a way to explain to people what was happening in New York. Like, here's a night with Greg Tate. He's hanging out in East Village with Micah. Micah was my bass player, but also like, and how all the bands cross-pollinated with members. He broke it down so eloquently. And yeah, that quote stayed in my press kit for years. It's still in there. Anytime someone's like, here's a blurb, Greg Tate, first quote.
Yeah.
So cool, man. That is rad, man. And you know, that guy's, you know, man, just what he's done too. I mean, the BRC, I was a little kid, like, finding out about that, you know, of course, through Living Color back in the 80s and stuff. And then just finding out that there was something that was like for us. So to have anything from that cat too, with the ground he laid for that is really cool. I mean, we had Bevis. It's funny. I interviewed him again, like this time around as well. And he was he's one of the founders of BRC, and just how legendary they were in a lot of ways, with really kind of like pushing a lot of us to the forefront in that regard. So that's so rad that he wrote about you guys, especially in Vibe. Vibe was the lit back then, man. Like, dude, that was a good magazine.
It was a good magazine, and also very importantly, this is pre-internet, and this is before it was, you would hear about Black people doing rock music in Vibe. You know, again, like Luther Vandross was on the cover of the Vibe magazine that we were in, so it was a story. You know, for Greg to be like, here's something that needs to be talked about. Here's, you know, the Black rock scene in New York City is part of Black culture, and we need to be talking about it. Like, Greg was the one who could make that who could present us in that way. You know, again, free internet, everything written was so much more, you know, I don't know, important, or I don't know, important is the wrong word, but yeah, it was a critical element having such a respected writer be part of our part of the family, you know.
Yeah. And unapologetic. So, no excuses, no like, oh, you might like this if you like, none of that. Just straight to the point. I remember one time Greg, I don't know where we were, he like came up to me and he was like, honey child, you know, you're really, I don't know if he described me as punk rock, but he was like, you really don't care if something doesn't sound perfect. Like, if you don't care if it sounds ugly. And I was like, no, not really. And it was like he was kind of calculating like, oh, that's her thing. It's not about perfection. It's about the noise. And I never felt so seen in my life. Like, yeah, you're right. I don't. And the fact that it was still a dialogue and it was no different than him talking about Butch Morris or whatever, was just like, I felt seen. Like, okay, respect. Here's somebody whose books I've read, who made me want to come back to New York and find other Black rockers. And he understands what I'm doing. Right on. Like, he just got it.
That's so cool, man. Here's another weird question concerning just how would you both individually describe one everybody in the collective? Like, how would you describe how would you describe your fellow collective?
I got it.
Yeah.
I mean, and how would you describe yourselves? Like, for people that don't know, like, how would you describe your fellow compatriots, and also how would you describe yourself? You can use music, of course, as obviously, but like just style-wise and just like even vibe-wise or whatever way you want to describe it. I hope that's not a weird question.
I feel like I want to have the vibe because Greg nailed it. Like, yeah, Greg in really a couple sentences nailed everybody.
Yeah, it's a little hard to top how Greg wrote about it, to be honest. I mean, we described each other in Black Punk Now, and in Lena's interview with us too. I just think back to like how meeting each of you individually. Like, when I met Simi, she was my friend's roommate. You know, she comes running down the stairs with like in like a bra and shorts with some cigarettes in the strap of her bra, just playing. She enters the room playing violin. Like, I haven't even officially met her yet. She jumped into the jam session and I was like, who is this? So that was my introduction to Simi. And to me, like, perfect. That's how she was on stage. She was just like, okay, I'm here. This is it. When I met Tamar, she was in my house. Like, me and my roommate were just chilling, and she came home with our other roommate. Same thing. And we heard her talking, and then she came to hang out with us, and we're like, I'm sorry, you're really fucking cool. What is this? Where did you come from? And we started skating together way before we had bands. So, like, I think the one thing that, you know, we talk about this a lot, the thing that kind of tied us all together is it wasn't just a movement or a scene. We all were really friends. And we really did hang out just to hang out. And it's not so common. I feel like in the other scenes I've been in, you might be friends with one or two people, but it's really competitive. And it's a little like, oh yeah, Maya's playing again, whatever. But like, I'd be like, oh, Maya's playing, let's go. Like, we were really excited for each other. When I met Maya, Tamar actually brought me to meet Maya and Simi at the same time. And she didn't know that I already knew Simi. And Maya comes in. I could be wrong, but my vision is you just had on a lot of purple and a lot of suede, and you were very mysterious and very cool. And I was like, oh shit, who is this? So like, each person just really impressed me because, again, I didn't know other Black women playing rock and roll. This was all super new. And I never lost that excitement for what we all stood for and were. I think it really carried in like how we respected each other and how we showed up for each other.
That's so cool. That's
That is
so
cool.
rad.
I think that my experience is different because obviously, I didn't have like the roommate experience. Like I was saying, I always felt like an outsider. I was, had I think all of us had moved to New York from somewhere else, but
No, Tamar's a native.
Tamar's
She's
native.
a native New Yorker. Well, Simi is a native New York State
Right.
person from upstate.
Right.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I thought for the longest time that maybe because of her family, I thought that Tamar was also Southern. I think I got you two mixed up a lot.
Because she has Gullah family in South Carolina.
Yeah.
But she
And I
grew up
think
in
because like between you and the Dannys, I put her as Southern also. But
right.
But yeah, like my impression of each of those women was similar to what Honeychild said. It was this like, kind of the way you feel when you walk into a room and there's a rock star where you're like, oh my God, like this kind of, okay, I don't want to say anything stupid, and so like when Honeychild says that she sees me and I look mysterious and everything, I'm like, I was probably hiding my face because I was being shy of both of these women who I had just met. Like, Tamar Kali I had just met, and we were at Brownies to see a Simi show, and she took me there. She was like, yeah, and Honeychild's going to be there. I want you to meet her. So I'm still shy with Tamar. Walk in, and Honeychild sitting there. And to me, it was the same thing. Like, it was in a dark club. I don't think I'd been there before. And you were this like mysterious rock star looking, gorgeous, like, pierced and gorgeous. And, I was just like, shit. Like, what? I am such a nerd. But yeah, each one of those women was like just a stunning goddess from a different planet. And I've just always, even still, like with visual art, I just have always had imposter syndrome. I've always felt like an outsider, and so I always, what people saw in me and still I think when I'm being shy, people see like, oh, she's so aloof and mysterious, but that's just, But yeah, it was exciting to meet each one of them, and when seeing each one of them play individually, like there couldn't be competition because everybody was so stunningly awesome at what they did, which was all so different. Like yeah, like I don't have a way to describe everybody musically, but it was all so different. Everybody was so like authentically what they were doing. And yeah, it was, yes. I think the like describe each other thing, we got to pull out the Greg Tate article.
Yeah.
So cool. That's so cool. The other half of that question I was going to say is how much are you guys all the same? But I think you pretty much answered that earlier. If you want to expound on that, that's cool too. If you want to do that. But I'm shy, actually, believe it or not. That's why I'm like, so I understand. And I also understand, we talked about this in the other interview, I've dealt with a lot of alienation, like I guess, and I like the way you call it imposters, syndrome. I totally relate to that. So, man, but the thing is, it's like, I think that kind of helps us in a lot of the empathy towards a lot of cats, like no matter what. But if you guys want to expound off of that question, if there was anything else you wanted to say there, or if that was already said earlier, I do have other questions, of course, but
yeah,
like how much you guys are saying, I don't know.
How are we the same? We're independent, we're strong-willed, we're creative thinkers, very hard-headed, and we love rock music. We're composers, we're creators, we're
oh yeah, definitely.
like, I don't know, no matter how long it is that we don't see each other, when you get us all in a chat or in the room, it's like no time's passed, which is pretty incredible.
So cool, man. This is rad. Now, I'm gonna probably kind of circle back. You mentioned the Patti Smith song, which we talked about. It's interesting because then this is kind of segueing into the influences that you guys have had, post Sister Girls with Afropunk. From what I understand, that was supposed to be called, rock and roll. I don't like saying that word, but rock
Original
and roll
title of the film, I think it was Afropunk, the Rock and Roll Nigger Experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that got changed, but I'm not sure why or what happened with that. But yeah, which was cool.
Yeah, Rosenda, I am shy. I'm very shy. I know how to deal with it. I've come a long way, believe it or not. Rosenda is also like, she's awesome. Me and her met through Afropunk, actually. We met through the original Bhorr and
Okay.
the movie. So that's me and her, like, we are kind of like the West Coast, like, Afropunk collective, her and a few other cats that we always talk to. But we met because of the movie that you guys inspired. And also just like that, man, I'm so thankful for you guys and James putting that movie together. Seriously, because seriously, back then, I mean, I've been into punk since like 80s and early 90s. It was kind of a trip, man. Just some of the things that were said in that film, of course, I relate to, but the fact that you guys influenced a lot, and I guess that's where I was segueing the question with, like, with that whole rock and roll inward experience thing. I think James, in my opinion, he could tell me, but I seriously think, that was an inspiration for him, and just to tell our story in raw, because, that movie, the documentary said a lot of things that a lot of us were thinking. If we didn't think that, like somebody else did. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I've done a lot of interviews where people ask me about my experience in the punk scene, and I'm not one to rewrite history. I never felt a part of any scene until coming back to New York in the 90s. Like, I had community and I had friends, but I didn't go to punk shows by myself. I wasn't in that scene or that world. And part of I didn't have an imposter syndrome, but I felt like we didn't have the language to describe what gatekeeping felt like. And to be a Black woman, God forbid you're playing guitar and rock music and writing songs, and then you have to justify why to gatekeepers. Like, I don't like to waste my breath with petty people. Like, I'm a lot more patient now, but back then I'd be like, anyway, it's not for you. And so to go into a hostile environment where you're constantly having to prove yourself, music's supposed to set you free. Everywhere else in life, in the streets, we always got to prove ourselves. So why do I got to do that in my quote unquote community? So I wasn't trying to join up with that. No, and maybe because I'm a transplant coming to New York, meeting other Black people who like those things. Yeah, like Maya was saying, not everybody who came to our show looked like a rocker, but they felt like they could be themselves because they saw us on stage doing it. And why would I go looking for this somewhere else when we created this thing for us? Why would I be like, okay, cool, now I can go to CBGB's and go to the hardcore shows? I don't need to, because this is our world we created. And I don't know, like, I feel like some of the most punk people I know don't even look like punks. It's all about how you live and your attitude. And I don't think that's something that's ever going to change, at least not for me.
And again, this is why because I just saw your name pop up, this is why y'all got to get to know Dawn, she's like a world famous visual artist, but she's punk rock. And you'll see why when you just check her out. She's one of us.
Right on.
Yeah, she's part of the family.
I gotta
For
definitely check.
me, like as part of that, like when I say that I have, imposter syndrome or whatever, it's just like when I met, Honey Child and Simi and Tamar, and seeing them do their individual things, I would have this like, oh, they're so awesome at what they do. I'm just doing my little 3-chord Ramon shit, and maybe nobody's gonna dig that kind of thing. Like I knew that that was mine, but it was the way that I admire other people is like, oh, but you're a actual rock star, and I'm just a fangirl. But my thing, as far as needing to fit in, and like I said, the first Sister Girl show was the first time that I felt this nervousness, like I do give a shit what the crowd thinks, because my whole life had been this experience of not fitting in, from like going to the all-white elementary school and getting beat up for it, and then going from there to an integrated school and getting beat up for the way that I talk by the black kids. And so I got to this point very early on where the world had shown me, you don't belong, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that did was that it freed me up to be like, okay, well, if none of you people are going to accept me, then that frees me up to do my own shit. And so I just started doing my own shit, and I started walking into every room like, guess what? None of you people are going to like me. So fuck you. Let's just open up with fuck you all, And because of that, I think it made it easier for me, like just walking into spaces, assuming, like I was in Dallas, Texas, 17 and 18 years old with my first rock band with a bunch of white guys playing in white spaces. And so like, if I would have walked in like, oh, I wonder if this is going to be okay, I knew it wasn't. I knew that wasn't a question. Like I just knew, like, this is probably going to upset you or surprise you. I'm not really bothered by any of that. Here it is. And I think like once I got over on a lot of people because of that, like unintentionally, but I think that got me through a lot. Just this, the audacity of not giving a shit, I guess. And so when I got to New York, the first scenes that I discovered or that I was a part of, there were a few different ones that, like when I would have Mayapalooza, I would kind of try to bring it all together. There was like the gay rock scene and the metal and the glam rock and the like CBGBs and the punk rock. And there was so many different little bubbles that I knew a little bit about, and I never felt like I belonged in any of them. But again, that wasn't new for me, and so it left that open. It was kind of the opposite of like feeling like I needed to stay in a safe space, because nowhere was safe. Right? That sounds dramatic, but yeah, it was part of, not looking back on it, I understand that was part of feeling like I wasn't being accepted, was just accepting it, and not noticing it anymore, like anticipating it and then not noticing it, to the point that I didn't notice until the Sister Girls happened how much I needed that space. Like I just felt like, well, I'm an alien. Oh well, this is just how it's going to be. Like doing shows, the difference between doing shows in that space where it was us, and then creating that scene and seeing more and more of us kind of coming out of the closet, and then going and doing shows opening for Joan Jett in Connecticut at a biker bar, like being able to navigate that space, because again, it's like, this might even be dangerous. Like I might not get out of here alive, but I understand that, I'm coming from Texas looking like this,
Yeah.
So
that's punk, man. That's totally punk rock. Man.
Yeah, didn't know it. Like I look back on some of the stuff that I went through, and I'm like, oh, that poor little girl, this poor little underfed child, like I see pictures of myself and I'm like, oh no, I didn't. Somebody should have put a shirt on me and give me a sandwich.
Comedy, man. You guys look so cool. Like I said, I remember seeing you in Afropunk, and you know my favorite quote by you. The funny thing about both of you guys just had this stark like stare, and like even in the movie, it was just like bone straight serious. Like, but it was just like so cool, you know, like you guys are so down to earth. But man, it was like from seeing Honey Child on the Afropunk poster, and then seeing both of you guys in the film. And then what you said, like my favorite quote, I don't feel less black because I'm less normal. That always stands out. And that's awesome, because it's like the fact that like, and like I said, I totally relate to that. Like even my nickname Odd Rocker is because I felt like I didn't fit nowhere. And I couldn't, how could I say this? I couldn't do it. Even if I did it normal, I still wouldn't get it right. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, might as well make myself a canvas, you know, like, and man, it's beautiful. See what you guys have done. And with that question, I'm gonna, I don't know if anyone, let's see if anyone has any questions. And if you guys have any questions, Rock, that Rosinda says you are all creative living inspirations. Man, thanks, Rosie. Man. With that, I was gonna, the last question I'm gonna ask is this: even without you guys doing a formal Riot, sister Grrrl Riot show at the moment, how do you feel the Riot has continued, even without you guys, like, you know, like being, I guess, I don't want to say active because you guys are all active, but I mean as far as like doing shows together, you know, you guys are all, and also I forgot to ask just for the audience, what are you guys doing? What do you guys have in the works now? I know some things because I've talked to you guys and interviewed you, but I still want to ask that anyway, you know?
Honey Child just released a new collection today or last night, and it is awesome. That's what I need to keep lists when I do these things, because I thought I was going to remember right away. But yeah, go and to Bandcamp and find. Oh, and it's Friday too. Yeah, Honey Child has a brand new collection that y'all need to check out. It's so cool.
Thank you. Wait, don't you have a show up right now, Maya?
Do I have a show? Oh,
yeah, don't you have a gallery show up?
It's not my show, but I have a couple pieces in shows. So yeah, I'm doing only visual art now. Yeah, this is how I write songs. And yeah, I do like it's mostly online again because I'm a hermit, but I have a couple shows a couple pieces in a couple shows in Austin right now.
That's so rad.
Great.
So cool.
I do want to mention, because you're asking like how the influence has continued. I got to give a shout out to Leg Drop Productions and also to Nate, who books for Blue Stocking, because they've been putting together femme-fronted events and shows led by women of color. They did their first stage at Punk Island, and they have actually a Black History Month show coming up in a week at the Pit. So I have to give it a shout out to them, because they are steadfastly seeking out those new bands that came behind us and putting them on stages and big upping them, and it's really cool to witness.
So cool, man. That's just amazing. Shoot, I really appreciate you guys like taking the time. I know it's late, you know. Oh man, and I really appreciate you guys, seriously, like even like celebrating this moment with me. You could have been anywhere else and you chose me when I asked, like, hey, can I celebrate y'all?
Thank you.
It's amazing. I'm so honored, you know, like I'm glad to celebrate the 14th with y'all, and that's the day that you guys like freaking like did the thing, like launch what you guys did, and seriously, and the ripple effect it's had, I can see it, you know, and I hope this is enough to celebrate you guys, and I'm sorry sometimes I get giddy and I be laughing and stuff, and I'm just overexcited. Sometimes I'm kind of like a little shy, but I shouldn't even be saying this, you know, like, but Thank you both for it's an honor to have you on again and together. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Your enthusiasm is
you
very
so much.
infectious, so we appreciate it.
And with that, I have to ask. You guys already know. Word of wisdom.
Oh.
Oh, no.
Okay,
Even if
bye.
you oh no. Man,
Word of wisdom.
thank you.
I feel like it changes. I mean, right now, I feel like a broken record. I just keep saying the word community because it's so important. So find your people and help each other and lean on each other. And there's a lot of strength and power in that.
Yeah.
You know what, Maya? You ain't right.
That's what. No, that was what I was gonna have said.
Man, I appreciate you both. Like seriously, like anything else you want to say, go for it. Shout outs, anything. Like social media. Yep. And I know that Honey Child released the music. And seriously, give that. I know it's on Bandcamp, but tell everybody. Like where. Tell everybody like where to go for any social media you guys have. All right, like.
Well, I think a lot of us are sort of making a social media exodus step by step. We're both on Blue Sky. I don't have a Blue Sky for any of my bands. It's just under Honey Child Coleman. But I'm starting to build it up following Maya. Substack is coming soon because I have been doing some writing since Black Punk Now, so stay tuned for that. And I'm getting old school. If y'all want to be on a mailing list, send me your email address because I do newsletters.
Whatever
Like,
happened to MySpace? Isn't MySpace still a thing?
MySpace is. There are no people on it, but all my old music is still there. So I redesigned my MySpace page. If you just want to go listen to music for free, go to my MySpace.
I haven't been able to. I tried for a while to get back to my MySpace page, but it's from it was a Hotmail account that I had on it, and so and it's like an account that's been deactivated for decades, and so I was never able to get back into my original because I wanted some pictures that were on there.
They took down all the pictures.
Yeah.
The only thing they left on my page was 2 photos and all the music.
Well,
you're lucky because my music got taken down, and that's stuff that I can't find anymore. Like I had stuff when my nieces and nephew were kids that I recorded on my noise stuff that I did, and then one of my grindcore bands. I can't even get that stuff off of MySpace. I tried to get it, and it's just like blank. It's the way you're lucky you have your music on there.
That's crazy.
I was bummed. I'm like, you got to be kidding, man. Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think all the music that I have on there is like stuff that's on labels. I have to look again, but I don't think anything independent is on there anymore. And all the photos and all the videos gone.
That was a good website.
I think we need to start saving hard copies of our stuff that we've got on here too.
Today. Yeah.
And get out.
Yeah.
But
yeah, man, Lord of mercy. Dude, sorry about that.
No, I was just saying all my stuff right now is like all the visual art is on here and Facebook. I've been trying to use Blue Sky. There's not really an alternative for Blue Sky. Supposedly doing an alternative or an Instagram like thing soon. I don't know if there's anything that's like Facebook coming, but yeah, it's getting creepy on there. So
yeah,
and it's necessary for me. Like everybody's like, we should just stop using it altogether. But I think especially now we need to be able to communicate.
Yes.
For one, we just need to not be communicating all on the same channel that's controlled by the same. Anyway.
No.
Yeah. And for me, again, being a hermit and being not part of music anymore, especially like over COVID and during lockdown, being able to stay connected to my artist friends and see what everybody's up to through social media was, it was a lifesaver. And the way that everybody got together and bands were still playing together and stuff like that. So, I mean, I as the, aspiring hermit that I am, I love being able to kind of just peek through a little window and see what all of my friends are incredible artists. And, it keeps me going and keeps me inspired to be able to keep up with that. So hopefully there'll be a safer space soon.
I mean, to be able to go, it is exciting when you see your friends go live. Like, I'm doing some boring paperwork at my desk, but I can listen to a conversation, or I can listen to a stripped down set. It's great. And then you can tip somebody if you want or not. You're just like connecting in the chat. And we need a platform with that doesn't let like real dangerous haters in. I don't know what it's going to look like, but until then, I'm a little on the fence about an abrupt exodus, because we've all put our life's work into building these connections. And, I'm also not someone who joins platforms really quickly. I usually wait and watch it for a couple of years to make sure it does what I want it to do, and then I'll join. We don't have 2 years now. Like, we need to stay connected in any way we can. And that's why I was like, well, I need people's email addresses. I need to be able to reach people, because, what if they start regulating social media? What if some days it doesn't work? Like, is that going to mess up our livelihood? It can. And we can't risk that. Not now. So yeah, I'm building up those accounts, but I'm also reaching out to the people I really want to stay in touch with. And it takes a little extra work, but I do feel like our true fans can find us. The people who don't look for us, maybe they're not true fans, and I have to be okay with that, which is pretty hard.
And also, I think that, like, our roots are so deep in all of these things now. And like, Instagram wasn't originally also Facebook, also WhatsApp, also all the things. It's like with all these, conglomerates just buying everything so that one person is controlling communication, basically. But I feel like also, I'm 52, and so it's not going to be up to me or anybody my age to figure out what's next. Like, we grew out of MySpace, we grew out of all the things, and people are like, yeah, all our parents are on Facebook, fuck it anyway, So like, the kids are all right. The kids are all right, and they're going to find a way to, and that's why, the kids are all right, and so they had their own way to communicate, and so that got banned. But just for like 2 days, they took it down, put a few little new screws and bolts in the TikToks, and turned it back on with some new anyway. But yeah, the kids will figure it out.
Isn't TikTok regulated? Like, you can't put it on new phones, right?
They just corrected it today. Yesterday. My mom told me.
Interesting.
But the thing is, they took it down to it's impure, it's dirty.
Right.
They took it down, made it so that it works for them.
Right.
Like, people were getting flagged for using the word free and Palestine together was being taken down as hate speech on TikTok. So, and this was after it magically reappeared. So there's new people controlling what information can get out. So the kids will figure it out, and there'll be something new,
Yeah, that's so bad. Like, there's a woman that I follow. She's a Black content creator and people would call her militant and all that. She's like kind of on some Panther type stuff, but she really breaks down history, and they basically flagged her and had her whole video taken. I'm like, she didn't even say anything wrong. She's just telling the truth.
Exactly.
Right.
That's
Stuff
it.
like that is lame, Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Yeah, the shadow ban thing is real. But it's also like, I don't want to spend all my time doing admin for social media. That's my creative time. So how do we get around that? That's the challenge as independent creative peoples, because they want you to stay on it.
Yeah.
I mean, let me put on my tinfoil kufi for a minute and tell you that I cover my camera now when I search for stuff, and I notice a huge difference on laptop and phone. So they definitely want us to stay on these platforms, not to benefit us. Yeah. And we got to take that power back.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, because we do need.
But yes. So for now, Blue Sky and this thing is my socials. But yeah, Honeychild's got her Bandcamp. Bandcamp, I finally, if you noticed new activity at Honeychild, I finally did a profile and signed up on there and all that stuff. For your listening party. But yeah, check out Honeychild's new thing. There's so much stuff on there that was familiar, but I either hadn't heard in a while or excuse me. But yeah, Bandcamp.
Man, Rosie says right on. I just forgot my MySpace login. Interesting. I got in Blue Sky. Communication is essential. And Sam says truth. Stay connected is important in each way you feel comfortable in doing so. Yeah. Heavy stuff, man. But yeah, man, I hear you guys, you know, like seriously. I mean, I know about the shadow banning thing. One of my YouTube channels got not only shadow banned, but taken down. Shouts to Lisa Cabrera. If you guys don't follow her on YouTube, please do. She's the one who helped me get it back on. Just for some BS. Call me a bully because I was speaking against police brutality, you know, and the whole George Floyd thing and other things that I spoke against. And I know how it is. Yeah, I know that firsthand. Thank God I got it back. Yeah. But yeah, they really are on that weird stuff. So, you know, some of my other channels probably don't get as much flow, you know, and that's probably the reason why. So if you guys want to also go to my YouTube, I'm on, you know, this will be on YouTube, and I'm going to put the older stuff on there too, now that I found a better app to kind of help me get this off this page. Right. So I'm going to mob the interview that we did. I'm going to go on your page and steal it.
Cool.
Right on.
I don't know if it let me post the whole thing though, but
yeah, I couldn't. Remember when you were trying to connect with me to simultaneously have it? For some reason, it wouldn't let me do it. And then I tried to do that with my other page too, with one of the other things that I tried to do, and it wouldn't let me. So this app is tripping. I'm still gonna try to do the lives for the community's sake. You know, I dig this. You know, all the homies like saying what's up. You know.
Yeah, it's important. Definitely.
Man.
It's our broadcasting power while we have it, you know.
Yep.
Bias.
Most definitely.
Lando says it's bedtime.
Aw.
All right. That's his name?
Lando, yeah.
Yeah, we almost have the same name, man.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's true.
All right, Lando. Well, heck, thank you all. Thank you, and man, happy Sister Girl Riot Day. Glad to celebrate it with you, and thanks. It was an honor. Shouts to all of you cats that came out and rocked madness. Huge mad respect from France, Paris, France, to Canada. What's up, Ray Ray? Thank you, brother. Or I don't know if you're brother or ladies, or don't go by any. But thanks. Buenas noches. Thank you. Gracias, compadre. Or Kamai. I said it all wrong. My Spanish is awful.
Yeah.
Dude,
right,
good night. Good night. Black history of rock and roll, black history of rock and roll, black history of rock and roll. Peace to all of you guys. God bless you. Besame abo wa woman feskadu sahadum like I mean. And thanks for joining us on this great day. And this is another thing that I'm going to celebrate for the 14th. So peace to all of you guys, and thanks again. Good night.